Well, I think there's a lot of commonality in terms of the frustrations that we face for those of us who are in the sales or persuasion business. I mean, whether we're a leader of a sales team or a financial advisor or a leader of a network marketing organization or someone else in a sales capacity, we all face relatively similar challenges. We don't get as many referrals as we want. Our prospects buy from somebody else. Our prospects never make a decision, and that is probably the most frustrating of all. I think most of us can deal with yes. We don't like to hear no, of course, but we can deal with no. It's that maybe, it's that I'll think about it. That just frustrates us to no end. So it's this inability or unwillingness to take action that just drives those of us who are in leadership roles, as well as people who are frontline sales, just drives us to distraction. So why stories? Why are stories important in the selling sales process? There's a number of reasons. I think one of the big ones is what I would call logic versus emotion. We buy on emotion and we tend to justify it with logic. And what stories enable us to do is they enable us to connect on an emotional level. You ask any great trial attorney about why they're successful, and the answer is going to be the attorney in the trial who's the most successful is the one that tells the best story. That's who wins. Now, unfortunately, what happens is most people sell with statistics and facts, but we tend to distrust statistics and facts. We can't picture them. And that's the reason why a single story is more powerful than countless statistics. I mean, for example, you ask a smoker to justify their smoking habit, and what you'll hear about great Aunt Edna or great Uncle Tom who smoked 3 packs a day and lived to be 95. Now, they believe that smoking may not be bad for them despite all the statistical evidence to the contrary. So we will focus and we will believe the story even though it's outweighed by a preponderance of statistical facts. And plus, stories, of course, are far more interesting than statistical facts and figures. As I mentioned before, the number one objection that salespeople face is no decision. And we run into this no decision primarily because if I can't visualize how your solution will make my future better, I may not say no, but I'll also not say yes. And stories enable us to visualize outcomes. And remember that people buy because they're frustrated with a problem. And they see what you are offering as the solution. So if we share a story about someone who is similarly frustrated, it's likely that they'll feel our solution will meet their need. The reality is that most sales professionals really don't have great stories at their fingertips. And I'll prove it. I mean, quick. Tell me a story that communicates one of the biggest benefits about your products and services. Now, tell me a story that addresses one of the main reasons why people don't do business with you. If you're like 99% of the people, you struggle. You're thinking, okay, there's a story there somewhere, but I don't have it at my fingertips. And there's nothing wrong with that. The only issue is that you haven't prepared them. And what we want and what we encourage our clients to do is to develop these stories, to have them outlined and practiced and rehearsed so that they are like the proverbial arrows in the quiver. The key is that in order to tell stories that your prospect can relate to, you need to have a system and a structure for telling great stories. And unfortunately, most people just make up their stories on the fly. And they either draw a blank, and so they fall back on their default position, which is to just talk about statistics and facts, or they pull out their one or two stories that they have prepared and hope that somehow they can shoehorn the reason for why they're telling the story into the concern or objection or the desire that their particular prospect has. I think there are three fundamental skills that all sales professionals, or actually anyone who needs to persuade others, I think there are three fundamental skills that everyone needs to master. First, I think that we need to learn how to ask the right types of questions. And this is important because it's through questions that we draw out the desires and the concerns that our prospects have. Second of all, we need to learn to listen actively, and that's very important so that we learn and pick up the clues that people are giving us. And so often we're in a sales situation, our prospect will give us a great clue, but because we're not actively listening, the clue just goes right over our head. But the third skill, and this is the one that's overlooked most often in terms of sales training, is I think every sales professional needs to learn how to tell great sales stories. And the reason I say that is because we buy for emotional reasons and we justify them with logic, facts, and figures. And in order to make that emotional connection, stories are the most powerful tool that we have. So the question then becomes, why do you need training? I believe that you cannot learn how to tell great, unique sales stories by reading a book. I mean, no more than you can learn to swim by reading the Red Cross Guide. You learn by doing, you learn by practicing, getting feedback. The difficulty is in the telling of the story. It's easy to think of stories. It's maybe easier to write them down, but telling them is difficult. And that's the reason why I say, if you give me a day, I'll teach your sales team a system for creating powerful sales stories that address the major reasons why clients don't buy from you. So why hire me to teach your organization how to tell great sales stories? I think there's a couple reasons. I mean, certainly I wrote the #1 book on Amazon, Unique Sales Stories, which has been very well received in the financial services community, the network marketing community, and actually throughout the selling profession. And I'm very familiar with the challenges that sales teams face. And you know, some of my clients, of course, include Citigroup, Bank of America, EDS, Apple Computer, Liberty Mutual Insurance. In fact, over 700,000 people have heard me share practical ideas for attracting more prospects and then turning large percentages of them into paying clients. So I've been featured in Investment News, Selling Power Magazine, Entrepreneur Magazine, the Wall Street Journal. And I think that my previous experience as an executive at both PepsiCo and Kraft Foods is that I understand the importance of training, but I also understand the realities for how best to facilitate programs in a corporate environment.